kids experience security, love, all that kind of stuff, trust. So much of that is hardwired into them in this first stage of life. And a lot of that for followers of Jesus is how do we do all those things in a way that helps normalize Christianity so that it's just part of our lifestyle, part of what we, going to church is one of the things we do.
Parents, it's time to celebrate. The new On Purpose Parents podcast, a Saddleback Parents podcast, has arrived for tips, ideas, and encouragement to help you win at being an on purpose parent.
All right. Now, wait a second. Is this different? This is different music than last time? Or the same? Did we land? I don't know why I'm
that
always
so... That kind of sounds similar.
We're doing different music each
time. It was
time.
different? That one sounded so similar.
I agree.
I like it, though.
You say that, and yet that was...
It always feels the same.
Yeah.
Dude, that was, what, from last week?
I don't know.
You think it's the same one from last week?
I feel like it's the same.
From last week, yeah. It's like the
Well, they're instrumentals, and, you can't play any, pop music that, that's...
Copyrighted.
You got to get the license and all that. So we just do fun little...
Charlotte, by the way, we have a guest here, Charlotte.
Yeah.
And Charlotte is wondering, what did I get myself into?
Who are these crazy people?
Why are they debating the opening song? Trust me, Charlotte, there's a whole history to that.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. We've not landed on it. Chris likes the idea of a different song every time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fun.
I don't know why I care, but for some reason I say I don't care, and yet I obviously really care.
And enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. I enjoy it. I'm
enjoy
a
the
music
music.
fan. Okay. Well, hey everybody, welcome to another...
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
I'm getting so excited.
Producer Chris. Yeah. Charlotte also asked us, do you guys ever edit and cut? And we're like, nope, never. And there's an example. We won't edit that out.
This is all going to be in there.
This is who we are.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So everybody, welcome to another episode of our On Purpose Parents podcast. As always, in our little studio, my name is Kurt.
I'm Grace.
And over in the corner,
Producer
Chris, who is a little loose with the knobs today. It's
this Walmart thing that I got, super cheap, and I've never done this. I'm just trying to figure it out.
You're doing such a good job. You're doing such a good job. You really are.
And you're doing way better than Charlotte can do a way better job because
that is true.
What Charlotte does for a living at our church. Anyway, Ariel. Man, maybe we should edit this. Holy smokes. We have a guy on our team named Ariel, and I just called Grace Ariel. What is happening? Grace.
It's okay.
Grace.
It's all right. I know you know who I am.
And you look nothing like Ariel. You have the same color hair as Ariel.
Oh, do I?
Yeah. Okay. And you might be the same height because Ariel's pretty short.
Oh,
hey, we got a guest today with us.
We do. Grace, why don't you introduce our guest?
All right. So we have Charlotte, and we're super excited to have her. This is going to be start of a series that we're doing where we're inviting parents to talk about their experiences parenting kids of all ages and stages. And we're really going to kind of go back to what we talked about, our on-purpose parenting plan. So super excited to have you here, and we're going to have you introduce yourself. But before we do, and before you share a little bit about yourself, we were thinking it'd be fun just to kind of start off with a little bit of like an icebreaker. Great. And since this is a parenting podcast, we have over here, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see, but if you're not watching on YouTube, I have a would you rather bowl here. Nice. And so this is a game, a really easy, quick and easy game that most kids just really have fun with. So since this is a parenting podcast, let's do what the kids like to do.
That's
so
awesome.
If you can pick three things, we may get to all three, we may just do one. We'll go with the flow here.
There you go.
And
am I reading?
Yes, read them, and then you can give us your answers.
All right. Would you rather have eyes that change color depending on your mood, or hair that changes colors depending on the temperature? That's a good one. Honestly, neither. But if I had to pick, I feel like I would say, oh man, Man, that's hard. I'd say hair. Because sometimes you don't want to know, especially with kids. You don't want them to know that you are frustrated, even though you are very frustrated. So I'm going to go with hair.
Oh, that's a good one. That's right. Like if your eyes turned red every
then
time
they're
you're
like,
mad.
Mom's mad.
and it's on you. That's on you.
Yeah.
Right.
If it's cold and your hair turns orange, that's not your fault.
Yeah. It's just telling me what the weather is.
Yeah,
I don't have to
it's
look at my
that's
app.
true.
yes, it's like a visual barometer.
Thermometer.
No, wait. Thermometer?
A thermometer tells you the temperature.
Right.
A barometer tells you
thermostat.
the
Weather.
humidity.
Thermostat.
Actually, I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway.
Oh my goodness.
Thermostat.
Yeah.
No. No. Thermostat is what you set to determine. Okay.
Right. But yes.
So hair.
Point taken.
Hair
It's extra.
changes colors.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
that's cool.
I like that. That'd be me too.
Okay. I think so too. Yeah, it's the other one's too revealing.
Yeah,
It's
too
too,
revealing.
It's
I
too
mean,
exposing.
yeah, we want to feel our feelings, but
Yes.
sometimes it's like,
We don't need it to be exposed in our eyes all the time.
Yes.
All right, let's do the second one.
Would you rather live in a place where it never stops raining or live in a place that stays 110 degrees year round? Definitely raining. That is
Yes.
so easy for me.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I can't hang with the heat. I feel like I have like reverse seasonal things where it's not when it's cold and rainy, it's when it's hot.
You
like
won't
I get angry.
You won't get depressed after 4 months of rain.
Well, I
Just
did
like
grow
gray.
up in California, so I have no idea. But
But one
I
10
love
is
the
hot.
rain though, and I would totally live in a rainy climate if I
Okay.
could.
Oh, that's cool. That was an
Yeah.
easy one for you.
How
Totally
about
easy.
Grace?
That's tough, but I probably would also go with the rain. Although it's been quite rainy in California, which is unusual this year, and it's been kind of
Tired.
glum.
I'm over it.
Kind of sad.
Yeah. I'd be the sunny and hot and 110 all day.
Yeah.
110 is a lot.
110 is a lot.
110 makes it really tough to do anything outside.
Yeah, could be dangerous. Dangerous. It'd be hard to.
But
Although
I think I'd take it.
surfing, yeah, you do the more than the rain.
I think I'd take it. And last one.
Okay,
Last one is: would you rather be the most overdressed or the most underdressed at a party?
Dun, dun, dun.
That one's tough. I'd probably say. Either way, it's awkward.
I know, right? Like, which awkward do you want?
Where's
do
the
you
party?
want?
What kind of
Yeah.
party? If it's a party at the White House,
Any kind of gathering.
I don't want to be underdressed at the White
Oh.
House.
I'd probably say underdressed.
I think I would too.
Legitimately, because it's like if you show up and you're dressed to the nines and no one else is, that's a
That's
different
tough.
kind
It's
of
a different-
awkward
yeah.
than you just wore sweatpants to
And
work, and that's
most,
so weird.
most of the parties that the three of us get invited to, underdress is okay.
Yeah,
Underdress is okay.
Yeah, I think so because it's going to be awkward either way. Might as well be comfortable and awkward versus like super overdressed and awkward at the same time. Well, awesome. That was really fun.
Well,
Thanks for.
I know you don't care much about my opinion because I'm over here in the corner, but underdressed for me and 110 degree temperature for me also. So
And hair color or eyes, producer Chris.
eyes.
You would like to reveal your emotions to the world, or you just said that?
Nobody would choose that.
I don't remember the question. I just
There you go. All right. Well, hey, Charlotte,
man.
like Grace mentioned, this is part one of what's going to be how many episodes? 8 episodes or so of interviewing and conversations. 10, thank you, because 5 stages of parenting. We're going to interview a female and a mom and
and
dad.
dad.
Dad,
A mom and dad, not related to each other, so not necessarily from the same family each week. And we're kicking it off with Charlotte. Charlotte, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do for a living, and specifically your kids and what stage and age you're in the parenting journey.
yeah. So I'm Charlotte, and I work here at Saddleback. I've worked here for 10 years, always making basically the kids' content for the weekend and online on YouTube, all that stuff. And now we do next gen as well. So everything creative content we try to produce and get out there.
So without beating our own drum again, but you are largely responsible for the 500,000 followers on YouTube. The kids program
That's
has.
amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of my favorite things I get to do is the Bible stories. So, my husband Luke actually animates all those, and I write and produce all of them. So, that's been like, kind of my passion project over the last 7 years is
That's
animating
incredible.
the Bible stories. And that's largely why people come to our YouTube is to
Right.
watch those.
Super fun. I know our kids really enjoy that. And it's like a way to make learning about the Bible fun and cool. Yeah, so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, can you, before we start getting into the ages and stages and the framework of on-purpose parenting and your experience with that, can you just share maybe what's been, and tell us about your kids as well and your family, but maybe what's been a real memorable moment, surprising moment in parenting so far?
Yeah. So I have 2 kids. I have Owen, who is 3.5, and Quinn, who is 5 months, which is a fun age split, 3 years apart. And I feel like lately it's been cool with Owen because he's just kind of started getting to the stage where he can have like spiritual conversations legitimately as a 3-year-old. And so it's been fun talking to him more about Jesus. He's really into Bible stories. So, I mean, part of it is I think he's trying to delay bedtime. So he'll say another story, another story. And it's like, I'm not going to say no to a Bible story, but he knows how to
He knows how to do
he
it.
knows how to manipulate at 3 years old. But it's been fun. So, I mean, he's also been more interested in stories in general. So he's been watching Disney movies and stuff like that. So it's been fun having conversations with him about why people do certain things, why they act certain ways. He was really confused about The Little Mermaid, about why the dad was a
interesting.
certain way. So I was kind of talking to him about that. And we were just sitting there. I was like, whatever, I'm going to go for it. So I was talking to him about how, like, you know, Trident took Ariel's punishment for him or for her. Like, she was supposed to be punished for all the wrong things that she did, but her dad took that. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, and that's what Jesus does for us for real. And so we had this whole conversation about, you know, we do wrong things. And we should be punished for those things, but Jesus took that for us, and that's what he did on the cross. That's what we're celebrating with Easter in a few weeks, and we kind of had this whole conversation. And I was talking to him about like kind of a little mini gospel for a 3-year-old of, you know, how could if you want to be with Jesus forever in heaven, you know, we say we're sorry, we ask for forgiveness, and he always forgives us. And so we had that conversation, and then he just kind of was like, okay, but what about like steam trains? Like, how did it, you know, it's like kind of that thing where you're like, oh, you think you're having this like beautiful parenting moment, and then he just jumps. But it was interesting because even at that age, like a few weeks later, he was talking to me and he said, what's Jesus doing right now? And I was like, well, he's in heaven. He's making a home for you. And he's like, I want to go there. I want to follow Jesus, and I want to be in heaven with him forever. And it's like, you know, he's 3. And I truly believe that's like part of his faith journey, right? That, you know, he's young and his understanding is limited, but in as much as he can understand, he wants to follow Jesus. And so for me, it's been cool at such a young age how these kids can have, you know, spiritual conversations and can think about things and start to know Jesus in their own little way at that age. So that's been the most memorable. And that's really just been recently in like the past, I feel like 6 months, like since he turned 3, it kind of changes how their brains are wired and how they think and stuff.
That's really cool. Well, speaking of 3 and 5 months, you and Luke are right kind of smack in the middle with Owen in the middle of this first stage of parenting that we talk about on our on-purpose parent plan. And that is the stage that we call like for every stage, we have a role and a goal for parenting. And if you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, hopefully you hear us when we say this is just one way to think about it. We're not saying that everybody has to see it this way, but we do talk a lot about how in parenting intentionality matters, and you almost never accidentally get to where you want to go. You rarely unintentionally get the results you want in life. And especially with raising children. And so the idea of the on-purpose parent plan is just to help maybe frame some aspects of parenting in a way that parents can go, oh, that helps me for this season. Just to have a little bit of an understanding of what my role as a parent is, maybe what's a goal in our parenting. And so in this first stage of parenting, when our kids are from birth till about kindergarten, kind of 0 to 5, 0 to 6, the role that we've kind of assigned to that is the role of a caregiver. I mean, because your kids are very, very, very dependent on you. in those stages, almost entirely. Owen, a little bit less and less. He probably knows where the snacks are. And, if for some reason Owen was by himself for a couple hours in the house, he could probably figure out how to.
That would be mayhem. Hours is terrible.
Maybe not a couple
But
hours.
30 minutes?
30
Yeah.
But he could probably find the snacks. He could probably, he knows where to go to the bathroom. There's a few things,
yeah.
a few things
Yeah.
that he's kind of got. He's on his own a little bit.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you're still the caregiver.
Totally.
And the goal as a caregiver, we would suggest on this path to raising interdependent, lifelong followers of Jesus who want to make a kingdom contribution. That's what we've identified as. We think that's a very universal goal for any parent who's a Jesus follower.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't talk about what college should they go to, what should they do for a career, when should we let them date. Those are all part of the parenting journey. We think those would be, at best, secondary issues to the primary issue that's the same for all of us, and that is we want to raise our kids to be interdependent, lifelong followers of Jesus who want to make some kind of kingdom contribution with the way God's gifted and shaped them. And so along that journey, in your role now, Charlotte, as a caregiver, we would say the goal there is for your kids to see the faith of mom and dad, to see your and Luke's faith. And so that's kind of where we're at. So one of the questions we wanted to ask you is, as you think about that age and stage, that role of caregiver, the goal of them seeing your faith, are there some things that you've sort of intentionally done? How have you experienced maybe that role beyond the obvious? Well, we feed them and but how have you really done some caregiving in some maybe different, unforeseen ways that you didn't expect? Specifically, how are you maybe intentionally living a life that they, even at a very young age, are seeing your faith?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because this is a really hard stage to have spiritual discipline, like really hard. I feel like everyone I know who's in this stage that, it's having a quiet time feels like impossible, especially when your kids are awake. So it's different than they see me when they come down the stairs. I mean, they don't even come down the stairs by themselves. You're walking them down the stairs, and they don't see me reading my Bible or whatever. But I think what I've tried to do is when he doesn't see those spiritual disciplines, he can see, like, we go to church. And that seems basic, but I feel like that's how he's starting to see it, is like, and he's even asked, because he doesn't go to church with us, he goes to his class. So he's like, well, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, we're going to church too, and we're learning about Jesus too, and we're worshiping him, and we love it, and we love being at church, and, kind of explaining to him what we're doing. And for Quinn, who's 5 months, she's always with us. So it's at that age, she's seeing, she's 5 months, so she's not going to remember, but we bring her in the worship service and she like oohs during the songs and all that stuff. And, it's cute and it's fun to see that. But I feel like for Owen, it's kind of explaining to him what we're doing when we go to church. I think it's also, we try to pray together, and a lot of it is like demystifying it for him too. So him seeing our faith in a way that is attainable for him, because when we pray, we try to pray in words that he understands, or in words that for a while he was saying, I don't know the words to say. We'd say, do you want to pray? And he said, I don't know the words. And we're like, there aren't words. Like, so we try to like mix it up where we're not saying the same thing every time.
Right.
So kind of seeing, I feel like that's how he sees it mostly, is us praying, us like singing worship songs. We'll try to like have little family dance parties and worship together in that way. And the big part, though, I feel like as far as seeing, is like going to church and him seeing that.
No, I love that. I think such an important part when in this early stage of parenting is normalizing a lot of stuff, right? Like you normalize that it's okay to have different feelings. You normalize a lot of what you're modeling for your kids, you're trying to normalize for them. So in their mind, it just is a natural part of how we humans do things, right? Oh, I see mom and dad talking to each other when they're frustrated, which again, at Owen's age, how he processes that is different than maybe a junior higher would. But you're beginning to normalize. And so I think things like praying together, going to church, the way you do reprimand or whatever, you are normalizing what it means to live a life as parents in a family as followers of Jesus.
Yeah.
And he does not know how to articulate it right now, but so much of what kids experience, security, love, all that kind of stuff, trust, so much of that is hardwired into them in this first stage of life. And a lot of that for followers of Jesus is how do we do all those things in a way that helps normalize Christianity so that it's just part of our lifestyle, part of what going to church is one of the things we do. But we also pray and have dance parties and we forgive each other and we say we're sorry and we share our toys. A lot of that stuff is stuff that parents teach even if they're not followers of Jesus. But as followers of Jesus, the seeing your faith, sometimes I think we go, hey, we don't have to worry too much about all this stuff until they get maybe in middle school or maybe upper elementary where they're really starting to ask tough questions. We better have our act together. But it starts in this foundation, which is why so many kids in churches will say, I don't really know when I became a Jesus follower. Right. I just always knew that God loved me. I always knew that Jesus loved me. Well, a lot of that always knew is because of things like you're talking about, you and Luke do intentionally right now, when they don't really even understand how to process it. But that's contributing to this. I just kind of always knew it was just in our DNA. It's just how our family lived their lives.
Yeah, and I love what you said too. You said this stage of caregiving is so hard. And so I know talking to a lot of parents in this stage, and I've forgotten a lot of it already because I'm out of that stage, and it's so easy to forget how hands-on and how all-consuming and difficult it is, that it's very easy to be like, oh, I'm not showing my faith in the stereotypical, visible, I'm reading the Bible in front of my kids kind of way. So I just thought it was so great that you're pointing out, I'm talking to my kids about faith by watching The Little Mermaid and making a connection, because in this stage, it isn't, the obvious spiritual activity that relates to the kids at all. It's your day-to-day activity. Like you're saying, normalizing things. It's how they feel loved, how they feel secure, how they can trust adults, when that's really great. And I think that's such a good reminder, because I think a lot of parents in this stage may feel pressure to show their faith in a certain way, or feel like maybe they're missing the mark by not doing something obviously spiritual in a way that kids can understand. But kids they're not going to understand everything the way adults will, or even teenagers will. But like you were saying, making the connections to the day-to-day, that's like such a beautiful thing.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Charlotte, you think about Quinn 5 months, Owen 3.5 years old, what's been one or two sort of unexpected learnings, unexpected experiences, good or bad, that stick out in this age and stage of parenting?
Yeah. I mean, part of what I already said, like, it's so hard. Like, I think that was really unexpected. I've worked with kids since I was like a kid. So I've volunteered in kids ministry since I was 11. So like, I kind of was like, I know kids. Like, I love kids. This is easy or whatever. And even I particularly worked with early childhood kids a lot. But I mean, the baby stage is so incredibly hard. At least it was for me. Like, I'm still sleep deprived with a 5-month-old. So, I mean, the actual physical toll that it takes on you is a lot more than I thought. And then I think too, with Owen now being a 3-year-old, it's like, man, this is tough. Like, I mean, the tantrums, him wanting a certain thing, him just like turning on a dime. It's like, and it's universal. I feel like everyone I talk to says that. And that's why there's full Instagram accounts devoted to just like talking about how ridiculous it is. Cause there's one that I follow that says like, we're going to have meltdown Monday, which everyone just says like, what did your toddler meltdown about? Just to like create some like, this is normal. Like we're all going through this. But I think I wasn't aware of that before I became a parent. I just didn't realize how hard it was. So I think that's one thing. And it's the same thing with babies. I didn't realize how hard it was to have a baby, like the toll that it takes on you as a mom, like, and I mean, and it is different for everyone. Sometimes it's physically really hard. Sometimes you go through postpartum depression or anxiety. Like there's just so much that I didn't realize you could go through when you're having a baby. So I feel like that's like the kind of the downer one. It's just hard.
Yeah, sure.
But I feel like the unexpected good thing is I didn't realize how early on they can develop their personality. They can be fun. Like they can have, like I said, spiritual conversations at such a young age. Even at 2 years old, I feel like we were having conversations with Owen and he was wanting to learn how to pray or, whatever. Like I think that was something that was exciting to me because I saw that with working with kids. I saw that with kindergartners and 4-year-olds, but I didn't realize like a 3-year-old can start, you can be like planting seeds and cultivating those seeds in a 3-year-old. And it just never occurred to me, even working with kids for so long. So I love that. I feel like it's so cool to see. And I just feel like it has to like make God so happy to just see these kids at such an early age wanting to do that.
Latching onto something you said, seeing their personality, and you then use the word cultivating. Like, give some examples. Maybe that another mom or dad listening, they say, "Okay, I'd like to cultivate my 3-year-old's personality." And like, what are some examples of things you might do or things you have done that would help cultivate that and kind of develop that at that age?
Yeah, I mean, for 3, well, really 3's through kinder, like it's the why phase, right? So there's always saying like, why this, why that? And that can get like super exhausting. But really, I mean, you kind of hinted at it earlier that you're normalizing. It's also like you're shaping their worldview. So I think like one way to cultivate is like, as they're asking why, like you're actually explaining to them how the world works. Like Quinn has never seen anything before. Like she came out and she doesn't know what a human face is.
Right.
So she's like learning the world visually. She's learning what things are, what they feel like. But Owen's learning like his place in the world and how he interacts with people. So I feel like for me, for cultivating his personality and like his way of relating to people is like we talk a lot about like what someone did and what his response can be, or what do we do when someone, he's in preschool, and it broke my heart because he came home and said like some kid told him that he couldn't sit with him. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're 3, like why? But then we talked about like, okay, well, do you ever want to be alone? Do you ever want to like spend some time by yourself? Maybe that's what they're feeling. So kind of like trying to help him like figure out like how does he relate with other people? Or even like talking, and he said one kid was a mean kid, and we talked about, okay, that kid, he's making wrong choices. He's not, he's doing mean things.
So in neither case, it doesn't sound like the first thing you did was call the school and complain and make sure the other parent knew that their child is bullying your son and is using mean.
No, I mean, that's what I wanted to do. I think, you go into like mama bear mode where you're like, I want to take, you know.
No, I know.
But I mean, but then it's cool because in those situations, then the kid started becoming his friend. He said he's nice now. I was like, so you can make different choices. Yeah. But that is an example of like, in that moment, I was teaching Owen that like, you're not defined by your choice. Like you're defined by what God says of you, and you're not mean or nice. You choose to be mean or you choose. And so it's like, and then you can choose to make a different choice. So like, it's all those things where it's like in the moment, I feel like my head's like, what am I trying to say? But then coming out of it, it's like, I'm trying to teach him that you can change, that you can make different choices. And it's a long process to get there. But if you keep saying it over and over, that's what cultivates it. Yeah.
Well, the reason I made this silly joke is because I think one of the best character traits, or it might even just be like a skill that we can teach our kids, is resiliency, to bounce back and to move forward and to, in some ways, advocate for themselves. And one of the biggest hindrances to resiliency is when our first response is to take action on their behalf, right? Or protect them from consequence, or protect them from pain, or protect them from a mean child by calling the parent. So we instantly intervene. Whereas what you're talking about is, no, I'm going to help him think about, I loved what you said. Yeah. This child was mean to me, and you said, well, or not that he was mean. He didn't want to sit next to me, which hurt his feelings. And you said, well, have you ever felt like maybe you want to be alone? Maybe that's what this child was feeling. Maybe he just wanted to be alone for a little while. And you spun it instead of getting super defensive and helped him process, which to me is helping them very early on. We use the word normalizing, but you're normalizing this, don't have a knee-jerk reaction. Try to see the other person's perspective. Maybe there's something bigger going on than just how it affected you. You didn't call and make the situation right. Hey, make sure my son is never sitting alone, Mrs. Teacher, right? Because doing that hurts his own ability to process and to empathize and to be resilient. So I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's so great, I think, especially at this age, that you're planting those seeds, because it can feel like there's not as much fruit, because I remember at this age, you may be planting those seeds, but you're not quite sure if they fully get it.
Yeah.
Like they're, and then they switch over back to like tractor trucks or whatever it is that they're distracted by. So it may seem like, well, I will just wait to explain some of these concepts till they're older and they can understand, or they could at least show verbally that they understand. But in a lot of ways, they are understanding. They may not just be able to articulate exactly what it is, but they're getting the concepts. They're getting, that repetition of how you're helping them see the world, process the world, reflect on themselves. And it's like, to me, it's like a layer. It's like it's building up over time, and you are building up their resilience, but their emotional awareness and just even concept, like you're introducing concepts of, oh, I'm not a bad person if somebody doesn't want to sit with me, but that person is also not a bad person. That's like a concept that has to be, shared to be able to be understood, especially for kids. So that's really awesome, especially at this age where sometimes it's not as rewarding to share. And then it's like, did you understand these words of brilliance that I've imparted on you?
Well, and I hope that when he's 10, like this sets the foundation for that. We'll see. Who knows? I could be back here in 5 years and be like, didn't work. But I mean, I think it's easier to like kind of like sow the seeds, cultivate the ground now, knowing that that's going to come later. And that's what I'm like hopeful for. I think that's why so many kids do come to faith around first grade-ish, because it's like they've been taught that for years and years, and then it's like, okay, now I can make that decision.
My mind, when you said it 5 years from now, if it didn't work, my mind went to, okay, if Owen is an 8-year-old car thief, then we'll probably have to reconvene and say, okay, where did something didn't quite go as planned.
Part 2 of this podcast.
Live from prison.
Oh, no. Oh my.
The world's youngest car thief. Okay, one last question.
All right.
I don't know who's asking.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm here. So if you were to just kind of wrap up our time together, what's an advice that you would give to parents who are in this stage and trying to work out all the things of this age and stage and trying to have the goal of helping their kids see their faith? Is there anything and kind of any final thoughts or advice that you would give to parents who are experiencing maybe similar things as you?
Yeah. I think it'd be like trying to remember the bigger picture whenever you can, and also giving yourself grace when you mess up in that moment, because I think, there's so much pressure on parents in my stage to like feed your kid the colors of the rainbow, to like have a script for when they have a tantrum, to like make your kid like Instagram cute or whatever. There's so much pressure and it's exhausting when you're like looking on social media. Social media is such a big part of, I feel like, a lot of parents' lives in my stage, and sometimes it's great because it gives us a lot of tips, and sometimes it's like, so you compare a lot. So I think like when we mess up, it's like, how can we in those moments see the bigger picture too, of like what's the like long game of your parenting style? And you might mess up in the moment. Like I feel like I messed up in the moment this week when I had both kids by myself, and I'm like, I'm just so exhausted and I like am on the verge of yelling because it's so hard, because you're drained. But it's like, okay, but what's like my long term, like what's my long game in parenting him? And even if I mess up in those moments, like, I mean, that's a great opportunity to ask for forgiveness and show him that. And like, that's the bigger picture of, so I think like it's when you are caring for the every need, it's so hard to get so zeroed in on just getting through the day. And that's what we have to do so often. But it's like, what are the things we're doing that are like lasting and kind of finding like comfort in that.
Right.
That's really
Yeah,
good.
that's great.
Like that, yeah. Well, a bad moment doesn't make you a bad parent, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't. And everybody has bad moments, and the arc is very long.
Yeah.
And raise 18 years and beyond, is a long time. And we're going to mess up, and we're going to get it wrong. And we're going to, you said you felt like you wanted to yell. You probably have yelled, and you probably will at some point, right? I mean, it happens. Or we overreact, or we underreact in a way that we know maybe we shouldn't have, right, for the situation. And we get it wrong all the time. Parents, hang in there. If you're the parent like Charlotte, if you're in this stage where you have somewhere in that 0 to 5, those are tough years.
So hard.
They go by fast. Reggie Joyner, who runs an organization called Orange and Rethink, and it's a parenting organization, he has a statement where he says, the years. No, I don't know what he says.
The days are long, but the years are short. I have a
Thank
mug
you.
that someone gave me that says.
The days are long, but the
Right.
years are short, which is so true, right? I mean, there are days where you just feel like this is a grind. And I can say, and Grace, you can too. You're not as far removed from that stage as I am, but man, oh man, did those years go by
Oh,
fast.
so fast.
And cherish them. Charlotte, cherish them. Because
And we forget all the pain. We're just like, they were glorious
They were great.
days.
They
They
were
were
wonderful.
so cute and
Yeah.
angelic.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
and
don't
then
feel short right now.
Yeah,
the
I
years feel long, but I get it's true,
Yeah.
But
So-
it's to your point, it's perspective. When you're in our place where the kids are older, it's easy to have that bigger picture perspective because it's like, yay, they can shower by themselves, and well, hopefully your kids can shower by themselves.
I hope.
Oh yeah, but like in your stage, it's just so hard to get perspective. So
Yeah.
that's such wonderful advice. Is just see the big picture.
Yeah. Well, everybody, thanks so much for listening. Charlotte, thanks a ton for giving us your time. You can always send us a question at parents@saddleback.com. Share this podcast with your friends, and we will see you next time around.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining the On Purpose Parents podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, you can help us by rating and reviewing our podcast on iTunes. If you're listening on our Saddleback Parents YouTube channel, please like and leave a comment. Also, remember to subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends. You can connect with us by texting the word parents to the number 83000, following us on Instagram at Saddleback Parents, and emailing your comments to parents@saddleback.com. As a huge thank you, you can browse our hundreds of free resources at onpurposeparents.com, all created to help you win at parenting. We'll catch you next time.